There's just a little bit of juice left. The Man United name, it still holds a little bit of weight. Look, we're not the same attractive proposition that we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly not 15 years ago. We aren't going to be signing this summer the likes of Florian Wirtz. We're not going to be going after the top 5 players in the world, the biggest names, but there's still a little bit of a little bit. I'm not saying there's a lot, a little bit. We're Man United still holds a little bit of weight at the negotiation table. I'm happy about this. I'm very, very happy about this. David Ornstein reporting last night, Bryan Mbeumo has decided he wants to join Manchester United, and United now expected to open talks with Brentford in a bid to sign the 25-year-old forward this summer. The likes of Arsenal, Newcastle, and Spurs all interested, but the Cameroon international favors Old Trafford if a deal is agreed. Now, the news broke last night. If you didn't know, I was at Baller League. That was crazy in its own right. If you don't know, go check it out. But what a night for SDSFC. But yeah, this news broke last night, and I just obviously wasn't able to get to a camera quick enough to record a video about it. But next morning, next day, I've also had the chance to think about it even more, and I love this move. I actually really, really like this move. Bryan Mbeumo. If you didn't see my Matheus Cunha video, go check it out. But a lot of the points that I made about Matheus Cunha, I'm probably going to end up repeating about Mbeumo. Prem signing. First and foremost, exactly what I said about Cunha in terms of a player coming in to Man United, not having to acclimate to the surroundings, not having to acclimate to the pace of the league, not having to learn what it takes to be a Premier League forward. Not to say the Premier League is the be-all end-all, but there is a different style to playing in the Premier League compared to the Serie A or compared to the Bundesliga, different tempos, different styles. Like getting players from the Premier League, there's typically a quicker adaptation period compared to signing a player from Italy. So first and foremost, just like I said about Cunha, that's a check off the checklist. Great. Second of all, the physical level of this team continues to increase with Bryan Mbeumo. This guy right here is a terrific ball carrier. Again, similar to Cunha, but the amount of ground that Bryan Mbeumo can cover in terms of picking up the ball from deep and just running at players, bringing the ball up the pitch, even running in transition as well too. This is a real forward. He can play out wide, he can play in a two-pronged attack that, like he did at Brentford next to Wissa. And that forward line, man, talk about streets won't forget. That's going to go down in history. Mbeumo and Wissa at Brentford scoring 20 each. That's Barclays being revived right there, man. But Mbeumo, this is a real forward. And look, he's not playing at the likes of Real Madrid. He's not playing at the likes of Barcelona. So I know fans will say, well, what, you're gassing up Man United signing a Brentford player. First and foremost, we have to understand our level right now. We just finished 15th place in the league. And we're not able to go and chase the la crème de la crème, as they say. We have to be realistic here. But we're signing a guy that last season was easily one of the best players in the league. If you were making a Premier League team of the season, I mean, he doesn't get in because Salah was above and beyond the best player in the league by a mile. But if Salah doesn't exist, and Mbeumo's taking that right wing spot. This was one of the best players in the league over the last calendar year, similar to Matheus Cunha as well too. So we are going around the Premier League and really looking at players that, look, they might not be considered elite right now, but when you look at the age and you look at the potential trajectory that they could go on to have, I'm going to bring up Liverpool when Klopp signed for them. Again, there's no guarantee that Mbeumo ends up being like Salah or that Cunha ends up being like Mane. I'm not trying to say that, but Liverpool under Klopp didn't go sign Real Madrid's right winger. They didn't go sign Bayern Munich's number 9. They went and looked around Europe, and especially in the Premier League as well too, and looked at players of a certain age bracket who, if given the right environment and the right circumstances at a bigger club with better players and a better manager, could they go on to make that leap at their club without blowing the bank? And I think in the form of Mbeumo and Cunha, Man United have done exactly that. And what I like about these two as well too is the fact that it's clear to me they're not going to make the same mistake that they did with Ten Hag. Erik Ten Hag, I continue to say, is the most destructive manager post Sir Alex in the Manchester United era. Honestly, I don't think there's been a manager post Sir Alex that has done more damage to this football club than Erik Ten Hag. Why do I say that? The signings that this guy made for the price that he did, we're still feeling the consequences of it now. Whether it was Casemiro at 30 years old for, what was it, like 70, damn near 80 million, it felt like, some crazy fee like that. Mason Mount, Onana, Rasmus Højlund, Ugarte this summer. We signed players for his system that now I wish we could get rid of. I wish I could just snap my fingers and they didn't exist anymore at this club. With Mbeumo and Cunha, they fit what the manager wants to do. Yes, these two are probably going to be the starting number 10s in Amorim's three-pronged attack, in his 3-5-2, or 3-4-2-1, excuse me. they're going to probably be the two number 10s behind whatever center forward we decide to go for. But also, if God forbid it doesn't work out with Amorim, which is a very real possibility, what, you're telling me these guys can't play under a 4 at the back manager? You're telling me they can't play in a 4-3-3? You're telling me Mateus Cunha can't play in behind the striker in 4-4-2 or something, 4-3-3? These guys can exist past Ruben Amorim. And I do think at Man United, a big issue we've made, or a big issue we've had, is we sign players specifically for one manager, and then when that manager comes, or leaves, excuse me, they then become deadwood or just part of the furniture for the next manager who has to inherit them. I think any manager that Man United hire, or if they decide to stick with Amorim, of course, will look at Mbeumo and Cunha and say, yeah, these are big players for me. So I have to be honest, I haven't been very impressed with Ineos since they came through the door. But this is very good from both of them. Obviously, it's not a finished deal with Mbeumo. They still have to sign him. He's just basically said he wants to join. They're still going to have to negotiate with Brentford. And if you believe the rumors, Brentford believe that Mbeumo should be valued just as highly as Cunha was at Wolves, which means it's another 65 million pound player. But if they're able to get Bryan Mbeumo over the line, I think Man United are signing a top player. I seriously do. And I seriously think as well, too, of Mbeumo. He has the potential to get even better. Like, we saw a great season from him last year, 20 goals. I don't know if he scores 20 goals again. Like, that's another story altogether. But does Bryan Mbeumo have the potential to elevate his game to another level, to one day be a player that is like a constant in the Champions League as well, too? I think he does. I think he does. And I think Mbeumo is one of those players that if he had signed for Chelsea, if he had signed for Spurs, if he had signed for Arsenal, if he had signed for any of these big teams, I think he could have actually gone there and hanged. Like, he's a good enough player for those clubs. I truly believe that. Now, here's where we also have to be realistic, right? Like, I'm seeing from David Ornstein, Arsenal were interested. I hear that, right? Because Mbeumo was a top player, and you can never have enough good players. But this is a little easier for Man United because, like, let's be real, right? If a center forward tomorrow becomes available, like Isak, for example, becomes available tomorrow, only a certain few clubs are going to go after Isak. The ones that don't have a center forward. Man City will never go for Isak because they have Erling Haaland. With Mbeumo, Liverpool are never going to go after Mbeumo. Not because they don't think he's a good player, but because they have one of the best players in the world in that position already. Arsenal went after him because I'm sure they could have used him for depth, but realistically, Arsenal are never going to go buy one of the premier right wingers in world football because they already have one of them. That position is already taken up. And I'm sure Mbeumo would have looked at Arsenal and said, yeah, I'll be part of this great team, but how much am I really going to be playing? How much will I be featuring off my best position? Arsenal, in my opinion, were never a real player for Mbeumo. Man United, for example, they have a desperate need to fill one of those positions up. Newcastle, they've been crying out to fill that right wing position. Spurs, they're looking to bring some much needed quality up front. Those are really the teams we're competing with here. So I think we are a bit fortunate here that the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal really couldn't promise Mbeumo the guaranteed starting minutes that he would get at Man United. Because if we're being honest, where we are currently in our project and our trajectory compared to where Arsenal and Liverpool are, if we're directly competing for a player with those two, we're not getting very far. But how does Mbeumo fit at Man United if this deal does end up happening? I would have to imagine we're looking at Mbeumo and Cunha as the two number 10s. Now, I think a big question mark as well on top of that is who's playing in front of them. Because Liam Delap, who, if you believe the rumors, was Man United's number one priority, he's on the verge of joining Chelsea. Victor Osimhen's wages seem way too high for any serious club in Europe to go after, even though I personally think he's the best opportunity on the market in terms of he's the most guaranteed 20 goal a season striker available to clubs. But I don't think he's going to be making a move to any of these clubs unless he drastically lowers his wage demands. Gyökeres, I still think there are question marks about can he kind of translate how much success he's had from Liga NOS into the Premier League, into a club that maybe doesn't play the exact way Sporting do. Benjamin Sesko looks like a terrific profile, but he's not the final product either, similar to Ekitike. So there's a lot of question marks around that striker position for most clubs around Europe right now, right? Arsenal are looking for a number 9. Chelsea reportedly looking for another one as well too. Liverpool, could they be looking to add a number 9 to their team? And Man United, of course, as well too. But what really interests me is how Man United choose to kind of proceed with that. Because there is the potential for Xerxes to lead the line with both these two guys on either one of his sides. And for a Joshua Xerxes, I do like that a lot more than this season, for example, where we were sometimes lining up with Garnacho, Ahmad, and Xerxes, or Ahmad, Bruno, and Xerxes, because really there's not enough goals there, and Xerxes is a facilitator. He's a guy that wants to play make. He's a guy who wants to kind of connect and find players through on goal. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer. Good footballer, not a killer. But if you put two guys like Bryan Mbeumo and Cunha, who have a track record now of knowing where the goal is. And Mbeumo has just scored 20 goals in the league this season. Cunha, I think, scored 15. You kind of put those two on either side of him. All of a sudden, I do think you might be able to get more out of Joshua Zirkzee, get the best of his skill set a little bit more than we did this season. However, I'm still of the belief that Man United need to sign a top number 9. Have to. I continue saying it. There's a few positions in football that I consider non-negotiables. You cannot compromise on quality. Center forward is one of those positions you cannot afford to have a guy who's not good enough. I'm sorry, you can't. If you have a center forward that doesn't know how to score goals, bro, you better be Bobby Firmino. And even him, he still scored. But you understand what I'm saying. You better have 2 wingers on either side of him that are scoring 20 plus a season. Goalkeeper, another one of those non-negotiable positions. You can be elite every single part of the pitch. If you have a shit goalkeeper who's literally, or figuratively, picking up the ball and throwing it in his own net, doesn't matter what you're doing the rest of the pitch. That's a non-negotiable. So center forward, I still believe Man United need to do work in that position. But Mbeumo and Cunha, it adds goals to this team. And over the last few years, that's been a big problem for United. United haven't scored more than 60 goals in the Premier League since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was at the club. That's like 3 managers ago. More, to be honest, with all the interims. You know how long ago that was? We were still employing Cavani back then. Pogba was still at the club. Man United, a team, a club famed for its attacking firepower, for attack, never stopping, always going forward, have failed to score more than 60 goals in the Premier League season since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm sorry, attack this year has to be the biggest priority. Has to be. And I think with these two, you are taking a big step forward in fixing that. Because although I'm not expecting Mbeumo to hit 20 goals, right? He's probably not going to take penalties anymore. That's going to go to Bruno, right? His numbers will probably be affected. Cunha, is he going to score 15 again? I don't know. But are Man United going to be a better offensive unit? A more entertaining attacking team? A more ruthless team in front of goal? Adding these 2 players? 100%. 100% for me. And if they don't, we got to start looking at the manager. Because there's no excuses anymore. There's no more, oh, well, it's Garnacho and it's Zirkzee and it's Højlund. These guys right here are goal scorers. The proof's in the pudding. The proof's in the numbers. So I'm excited about those 2. From a creative point of view, I mean, to be honest with you, Mbeumo's creative numbers in terms of his assists, creating chances, they're actually higher than I thought they were. Because when I look at Mbeumo, I do see him as more of like a runner. Like he's a great dribbler. Mbeumo is very, very good at carrying the ball, but also even in small spaces, I think he maneuvers his way out of those situations quite well. And also he has a great eye for goal. With either foot, by the way, I've seen a few good finishes off his right from Mbeumo, but typically he's more of that guy coming off the left, cutting in, finding the far post, or even sometimes sneaking it in near post. So he's a great eye for goal, and he's a great player on the ball. But I don't know. I don't think I've ever really attributed like playmaking by Bryan Mbeumo. But to give him credit, I think he had like the 5th most chances created in the Premier League this season. And although chances created is a bit of a flawed metric in terms of like Grealish led the league for like he was one of the best chance creators in the Premier League for so many years. But you look at it, a lot of them is not like you're not looking at De Bruyne when you're watching him, right? So the stat is a little flawed, but he is a more creative player than I gave him credit for. However, with him and Cunha as the 2 10s, I do think you are kind of putting a huge initiative on Man United being a very, very good transition team next season, rather than a team that is going to be up against deep blocks and trying to break them down. Because I don't know if Cunha and Mbeumo and whoever you play as striker is a team that against deep blocks is going to have too much. It remains to be seen. We'll see how the manager kind of deploys them. However, someone who is guaranteed chance creation is Bruno Fernandes, who we learned this morning has officially rejected Al Hilal's bid to sign him on a £100 million fee, with wages reportedly estimated to be up to £700,000 a week. Bruno Fernandes has come out and rejected the offer. And this is something I kind of wanted to wait on because with Bruno, right? Like, I don't want to speak on it and it doesn't end up happening like it's kind of happened. However, if I were to give you guys my opinion the last few days, I think I would have sold him. I think if I were Man United, I would sell him. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this. And there's 2 ways of always looking at this. But there's an emotional side to it, and there's a logical side to it. Now, the emotional side to it. Man United fans, we love Bruno. He's our captain. He's our figurehead. He's been our best player for years now. He understands he gets it, right? He gets Man United. He loves playing for the club. And let's be real, without him over the last few years, I don't know where we would have been. We already didn't finish great. Without him, huge problems. Bruno as well, too. He loves this club. Bruno's an emotional guy. He's an emotional leader. I think Bruno dreams of bringing Man United back to the top. So from that point of view as well, too, I can imagine he didn't really want to leave Man United. In fact, he's come out and said in the past few weeks, I'm only going to leave if they ask me to leave. Like, if they need to sell me for financial reasons, I get it. It's a business, but I'm not looking to leave. So from the emotional point of view, I get why fans didn't want to sell him. I completely understand it. However, we're fans. We are emotional. We're allowed to be emotional. For my board members, for my directors of football, for my owners, for the people making the boss calls, I don't want them being emotional. I want them being cold-blooded. I want them thinking the success of the team rather than following their heart. You got to follow your head, not your heart. And I do think, looking at the Bruno Fernandes situation, as a soon-to-be 31-year-old, Bruno will enter next season 31 years old at the start of the year. And a guy who's played so many minutes over the last 5-6 years. Bruno's never injured. He never misses a game. He plays every game. I do think the best move was getting 100 million for him. I do think so. I think if you could have got 100 million for Bruno and then had that money to continue rebuilding the squad, I think that was the best course of action. And I know there are some question marks about, well, do you trust Man United to spend 100 million pounds correctly? That is a fully valid concern, 100%. But to that, I would answer, you don't know until you try. Like, I would rather they try to do it and fail than kind of just sit on their laurels and we are what we are. I think Man United should have sold him. And I even think for Bruno, right? I understand his decision. I think they came out and said family reasons. He didn't want to move his entire family to Saudi. That's fair enough. I can't argue with that, right? At the end of the day, it's his family. It's his life. It's not mine. But I am also a little surprised. I was very sure that he was going to leave. First and foremost, because he has nothing left to give this club. He has nothing left to give this club. Bruno Fernandes has sacrificed blood, sweat, and tears. He has dragged us across the line so many times. And Man United, if we're being real, has failed Bruno Fernandes over the last 5 years. They failed to surround him with a good enough team to match his abilities. Because Bruno Fernandes right now could go play for most of the big teams in Europe. I fully believe that. We have failed in that regard to properly provide him the right team to match his abilities. And as much as Bruno might love the club, we also have to be realistic here. Bruno is not winning the league here. In the best case scenario, Man United in 3 years have built a squad. This is best case scenario. It'll take us at least 3 years to build a squad that can at least compete. In 3 years, Bruno will be 34. He will not be part of that team competing for the league, unless by some miracle, this guy is just the ultimate Iron Man. But if we're playing percentages here, again, if we're being logical, he's not going to be part of that team. So Bruno Fernandes is probably going to experience more difficult days at Man United. So for his decision to actually be to stay at the club, I commend it. I respect it. I love the loyalty, but I don't think it's very logical. And then from a financial point of view, again, I'm not trying to count his pockets because he's his own man. I don't know him like that, but also let's not forget it, guys. Bruno has only really kind of been in the starlight. He's only really been an established player at the top level since he was 25. Before that, what? He was at Sporting for a little bit. He was at Sampdoria. Failed there. Udinese failed there. Like, Bruno is not like a guy since 17. He's been lighting up the world. He came to Man United for a big fee and then lit it up from there. And he had that 1 year at Sporting, maybe 1-2 years. But my point is, it's not like he's the Yamal who's been since 17 just tearing it up. He's a late bloomer. He's a guy who hit the stage late. So for him to be 31, he hasn't made that generational wealth throughout his career. This is your last chance to get a huge payday. And you're being offered 700 grand a week. Again, I don't know him. He's his own man. If his family isn't comfortable making that move, by all means, who am I to tell him to do that? But that was a decision I thought was a no-brainer. I thought it was a no-brainer for Bruno to go. It's not a bad thing that he's staying, but I would have sold him personally because I think Man United needs to rebuild. I think they gotta tear it down and restart. And I think Bruno's fee could have gone a long way in helping us with that rebuild. Now, if we had won the Europa League, we wouldn't even been having this conversation in the first place. That would have been 100 million pounds thanks to playing in the Champions League. We would have had the Adidas money for that. We wouldn't even be talking about Bruno. But because of the situation we're in, I can't lie. I think this kind of impacts our rebuild, if I'm being absolutely honest. Now we're in a situation where even this Mbeumo deal, we're going to have to sell to really get the funds to get this over the line. And we still need a center forward. And now get this. Okay, Bruno stays. Signing Mbeumo and Cunha almost guarantees our 2 number 10s are going to be them. Which means Bruno is going to continue playing this deeper role. Which I think in some facets, he's actually looked really good in terms of, I think he's become a lot more mature on the ball. He clearly is a chance creator from all over the pitch. It doesn't matter where he plays, he will create chances. No doubt about it. But from a physical point of view, guys, look, Bruno is Bruno. He's a brilliant player, but he's not perfect. There's what I'm about to say, don't get outraged by it. He has his flaws. Bruno Fernandes is not the most athletic player. He's not physically dominant. He's not a crazy runner on the ball. He's not carrying the ball forward. He's not breaking up play like that. He's a terrific technician with an amazing eye for a pass, and he can score goals. But in terms of an all-around central midfielder, he does have his flaws. And I actually think in the Europa League final, those flaws were put on full display against the likes of Bissouma, Bentancur, and Pape Sarr, who I thought really forced a bad game out of Bruno because of how they made it a physical duel, a physical battle that he just couldn't win. So if Bruno Fernandes is playing as one of your 2 number 8s, with Cunha and Mbeumo in front of him, the guy next to him has to be like an all-action demon. Like, I'm talking like physically dominant, probably 6 foot, good on the ball as well too, but like he has to really be a presence next to him. And that's something we have to go in the market now for, because I'm sorry, that's not Ugarte. Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes in midfield. I'm not trying to see that. I am not trying to see that. Best case scenario, Ugarte is just a squad player for Man United next season. If our midfield next year is Ugarte and Bruno, we might as well throw next season away too. Casemiro, shout out for the Europa League run, but if we're still relying on Casemiro to play next to Bruno for 38 games next year in the Prem, I think we're in trouble too. Eriksen is out the door. Mainu, I still think Amarim probably doesn't trust him to be the starting number 8. And even if you do, Mainu and Bruno, I don't think is the correct blend that you want in a midfield duo. So I think United now are going to have to go back in the market for a central midfielder, which they probably would have had to do anyways if they sold Bruno, but at least you would have had more funds to do it. Now we're kind of strapped for cash, but our biggest priority still has to be a number 9. It might have to be a goalkeeper as well too, because of you know who. But another midfielder now almost seems like it's a necessity. Who is that midfielder? I know they've been linked to Ederson throughout the year, but now it seems like after losing out on Bruno, Al Hilal are going to go after him. So I don't know, man. It's going to be very difficult. A guy like Baleba, I would have loved, but can you afford Baleba anymore? Absolutely not. Wharton is a pipe dream. So there are a lot of question marks for Man United. It's 2 really, really good signings for United. I'm a big fan of Mbeumo. I'm a fan of Cunha, and I like how early Man United are kind of getting business done. I'm a fan of that. But there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, and I think it would have been a little easier for us if we had sold Bruno. I honestly thought for all parties, it might be the best case scenario. I think Bruno, even now, right? I actually think, yeah, Bruno has decided to stay at Man United, but as much as he loves the club, I also think a large part of it is just he didn't want to go to Saudi at this point in his career, which is fair. I respect that. But if Bayern come in for Bruno, if, I don't know, Juve come in for him, if, I don't know, Arsenal, let's say Arsenal go in for him, are we so sure Bruno is staying? I'm not. I'm not, to be honest with you. So let's see how the rest of the summer goes, but I think this is a big step in the right direction. I'm not getting too carried away. Like I told you after the Cunha video, there's no point in getting carried away, because as good as these two are, we've seen Man United sign great players. I've seen Man United sign better players than Mbeumo, and it hasn't worked out. So it's up to us to create the right kind of culture for players like this to come into the club and thrive from the jump. But on face value, these are 2 very good players. Very good players. And the floor is very low right now. Like, we are at the bottom. I told you guys that a few weeks ago. We're in hell. The only way is up. It just matters how quickly we go. Remains to be seen.